Welcome back to The World Over. It is the world's largest library. Its collections include millions of books, recordings, photographs, maps, newspapers, films, you name it. Before she was appointed last year by President Obama to run the Library of Congress, my next guest ran the Baltimore Public Library. She served as president of the American Library Association. She is the first woman and the first African American and the first professional librarian in over 60 years to lead our National Library. Here to tell us about the Library of Congress's vast collection and to preview the upcoming National Book Festival is the Librarian of Congress, Dr. Carla Hayden. So great to have you here. What a pleasure. Thank you for coming. Now, I want to talk a little bit about you and then about this amazing collection. You have a unique vision of libraries that has so struck me as I've read about your career. You were in Chicago, you ran the libraries in Baltimore. You see them as much more than repositories of books.
In fact, they're the cornerstones of democracy. They really are one of the few places that everybody can feel part of, and they're welcome, and we like to think of ourselves as really a refuge, but also a place that you can soar.
And you expanded what Baltimore was doing. I mean, it wasn't just giving out library cards or finding books for people. You turned it into really an educational center for the community.
In fact, we even called it an opportunity center.
Right.
And it was the place that people could go and get online to apply for jobs. About 85% to 95% of all jobs, any type of job, you have to file online, apply online. And most people in some challenged areas don't have that access. And so we had health fairs, gave out flu shots, all of these types of things.
Amazing. Tell me about, there's one little boy that I saw referenced in some of your interviews, a boy named Leonard in Chicago. Tell me about him and how he kind of characterizes exactly what you're talking about.
And Leonard was part of the reason that I said, this is the profession for me. I was assigned to a storefront library on the south side of Chicago, and it was a pretty challenged neighborhood, and there was a little boy, Leonard, who was bullied and teased because he had a facial deformity. And he would come into the library, and we struck up a friendship. And after a while, he would sit right next to my desk, and pretty soon he was sorting cards, he was helping with preparing the crafts, and years passed, and Leonard finally, he had surgery that allowed him to be more accepted, but he became a teenager, and then he would pass the storefront and wave at me. And it made me feel so good because he found that place in the library.
That safe spot to grow and be affirmed. And
he would read books, and he was so interested in so many things.
Oh, amazing. I want to talk for a moment about this astounding collection that even I didn't realize until I moved to Washington what the Library of Congress contains. You incidentally have 3,200 staffers who you oversee, 160 million items, including things like the George Gershwin's piano, our friend Jerry Lewis's film collection.
Home movies.
Why do we need all that?
Well, it's the collective cultural memory and historical memory of the United States and the world. And it really is a resource for anyone that has curiosity, that wants to find out more. And we also are sustaining creativity and saying this is a celebration.
You recently digitized something near and dear to my heart. 20 years ago, now I'm confessing, I was going to write a play about Alexander Hamilton. A little late now, but I took notes 20 years ago. They put me in one of your special collections room with the gloves, and I flipped through Hamilton's letters and read many of them for days. You now have digitized all of these letters. Tell us about that.
And that's the wonder of it. When you think about, for instance, the papers of 23 presidents from George Washington to Coolidge, the diary of Teddy Roosevelt, where he marked on February 14th, that day that his mother and his wife died, and he said, my life is over. And then you have Hamilton's letter, this last letter to his wife before the interview, as they called it. And that people can, of course, visit and look at these things just like you did, but with digitization, anyone, that little boy, south side of Chicago, can sit at a computer and look at Hamilton's letters and the letters of his wife.
It's amazing. Are you worried that the digitization will force people or encourage them not to make the experience of going to a library and reading a hard book or a hard manuscript?
Well, and I'm smiling because digitizing whets the appetite, right? Okay, so once you see it, and then you want to see the real thing. And that's another part of it. And you want to read more about it. And it just gets you going. So that's what we're trying to do.
Tell me about the origins. I was fascinated by this. The origins of the contents of Abraham Lincoln's pockets when he was assassinated. Give me this backstory of how this came to be.
In 1975, the Librarian of Congress was new and was exploring the office of the librarian. And there was a door that seemed like it didn't go anywhere. And so he opened it, and behind the door was a safe, like a bank safe. However, there was no one that could open it. And the legend goes that a gentleman was released from a facility who had special skills and opened the safe, and there was only one thing in the safe, and that was a small box. And he opened it, and it said, "These are the contents of Abraham Lincoln's pockets the night he was assassinated." And it was given to the library by Abraham Lincoln's granddaughter.
Oh my gosh.
And he had 2 pairs of spectacles. He had articles about himself that some were good, some weren't. He had a handkerchief that had his initials. He had a $5 Confederate bill. And then something that really touches you in a way, because he had a button that had come off of his pocket. And just think about the humanness of that. If something, this comes up, you put it.
You pick it up. Beautiful. It tells us, it humanizes him. It brings
humanizes him. He was a real person in so many ways, and he's relatable.
Do you feel yourself as Librarian of Congress, do you feel that you are the custodian of Americans' literacy or America's literacy? Is that a burden you feel?
Oh, no. We're partners with so many other types of organizations and institutions. And so working together, we can really work on, I think, something that people might not realize, that illiteracy is unfortunately a contributor to a lot of the challenges that people have worldwide.
Right.
When you think about 65% of adults worldwide are functionally illiterate, and how that contributes to some of the issues that they face in life.
No, this has become a passion of mine, writing for children. You see the vast weight and the bitter patrimony you pass along to them if they can't read, or if a parent can't read. So I love that you've committed so much of your work and the Library of Congress to fostering reading. And we're going to talk in a moment about the National Book Festival, which is such an amazing event. But I want to talk about you for a moment, because you and I share a love of mysteries.
We love mystery.
What is it that draws you to mysteries?
Well, a mystery is a puzzle.
Yeah.
And you want to see, well, who done it, as they say. They call them who done it.
Yeah.
And it's usually the best mysteries are the ones where nobody really gets hurt.
Yeah, you like those English cozies.
I like the English
I like the bloody
cozy,
ones, but okay.
English cozy, the Cotswolds, the tea, the arsenic,
and the Jane Marples.
All of that. And but it's very satisfying, because at the end, something gets solved. And I think that's another part of it, the attraction of mysteries.
Yeah, me too. I love that justice is always restored at the end of a good mystery, even if the world is out of sync and crazy. Tell me about the National Book Festival and how you're continuing it this year. I was thrilled to be a part of it last year, and it was just, what an experience.
Over 200,000 people one day, over 100 and something authors, and authors for children, all types of authors, and you just had this festival of enjoying reading and books and buying books and programming. It's just exciting. So this is the 17th year, and it started actually when First Lady Laura Bush
Herself a librarian?
A librarian. Had started the Texas Book Festival, and then when she became First Lady of the Nation, she said, this is what we need in promoting literacy, and it's continued ever since. And now it includes literacy awards for organizations worldwide. One of our benefactors, David Rubenstein, has supported that. So there are actual awards given out. There's a poetry slam for young people, and then headliners like Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice is coming.
Wow.
I mentioned David McCullough.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Baldacci.
Oh, really?
Talk about that.
All the Thriller
J.D.
fans
Vance,
will
the
be
Thriller
there.
fans, Michael Lewis. So there's an all-star lineup. There's a main stage, and it's going to be live streamed. So if you're not able to be in Washington, D.C.,
you can see
in
it
the convention center, you can see it, and that's a really added plus.
I agree. No, it's a magnificent festival and a lot of fun, and it allows you to. There's something about meeting an author and having them discuss their work that just enriches the experience, and particularly for kids, for families. I think it's an incredible resource.
And the question and answer periods, and then to be able to actually purchase the book and get the author to sign it, and that's where there's more interaction too, when you really get to do it. So you're just a full day, and when I think about how many people are just walking around having fun, going, oh my, and they're checking their schedules and they're looking and trying to rush here and rush there. It's really something.
I love that you also have continued something that brings Americans together at a time when we so need that unity. And literacy, books, the stories that sustain us as a people are so critical.
Stories. And when you see an audience just enraptured by an author telling a story, and then you see the young people as well. And we have graphic novelists, people, all types of literacy.
No, you have people sketching, they do sketches for the kids. It's amazing. I mean, it really is.
So I would encourage everyone to tune in or to come in.
You bet. And I'll give you the coordinates on all that in just a moment. Before I let you go, Madam Librarian, Story-Ented, which is what this segment is, it's a literacy initiative I founded, but the idea is stories orient us in the world. They show us our place in the world. What was the story that set you on your path and the lesson you gleaned from it?
When you talked just now about your place in the world, the book, and I love to read, and I was going to this storefront library on my own across from the school. I was about 8, and some person put a book in my hand, Bright April. And it was about a little girl who was brown like me. She was in the brownie troop. She had 2 pigtails, and for the first time I saw myself reflected in a book. And that taught me that children need to have books as windows on the world, but also they need to see themselves in something that we say is so important, books and literacy. And then it's like, there I am, and there's my family. And since I've been talking about it so much lately in terms of influences in my life, I've received letters from women from varied backgrounds. The first one came from a woman in Minnesota who said I was a skinny girl, handicapped, and Bright April was my favorite book because she was an outsider. And then recently a woman in Connecticut who shared it with her 2 daughters and found a copy, a battered copy, she said, and she just read it to her granddaughters who identified with this little girl. And so that lesson that young people need to get something from a story too, not just entertainment, but
and the importance of diversity in books, particularly children's books, because it is important for kids to see themselves and place themselves in that drama.
Right. And that's what the pull is. You can imagine yourself taking great adventures and all types of books, but it's also good to see something that relates to you too, because that's what reading can do.
Give me your strategies. You've spent your life as a librarian and you interact daily with young readers. What would you advise parents who have reluctant readers at home? What are they missing? What should they be doing?
What they might want to do is think about making reading fun and not being too prescriptive. If they want to read a comic book, fine.
Let them read it.
because they're reading, and it's the practice of reading. And readers become better when they practice, and they can read a cereal box, they can read that, and also to model reading in the home. I had that advantage with a grandmother that read to me and would read next to me, my mom, and so show them, and you don't have to read War and Peace. You can be reading a magazine, and it's reading time, and everybody gets to read what they want. And if they see an adult doing something, you know, they will model.
They follow it. Yeah, no,
Right.
that's great advice. Great advice. Final question. You were appointed by President Obama for this position. I am a little distressed that he dropped the lifetime appointment and turned this into a 10-year appointment. Your thoughts on that? Was that a good idea or maybe not such a good idea since you're just getting started?
Actually, Congress decided, and it was, I think, a good decision because libraries are evolving and changing, and you might need to make sure that you are changing as well in terms of the leadership. So I think it's okay, and especially at my age.
Oh, come on, your age. And your mother is still with us and lives in your building, you were telling me.
Yes.
I mean, it must be amazing having your mother there, watching you, and breaking down the barriers you've broken down, and being the example you are. I mean, you're like Bright April to a lot of girls looking in.
I have to tell you, though, my mom was the example because she was in social work in Chicago, and some of my earliest memories were sitting doing my homework in the back of a community meeting that she was heading up in housing departments, the social services that she was responsible for, battered women's shelters, working with youth and gangs and all of that. So I grew up with this service and using the thing that I'm involved in to serve has been a watchword.
Wow, and to have your mother there along for the journey.
Oh my goodness, she's
What
a stay-at-home mom, she says now, though.
I love that.
She had to work when I was coming up.
Carla Hayden, thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
And for the great work you're doing. And I hope we can come visit. I want to see take the people in the cameras
That
on
would
a
be
little tour of
wonderful.
some of your collections.
We'll bring out the good silver.
All right. Oh, yeah. It won't be hard to find it. The 17th Library of Congress National Book Festival takes place this Saturday, September 2nd, at the Washington Convention Center here in D.C. It is free. It's a wonderful event for families, literary types, readers. Go. The information and schedule and authors is on the Library of Congress website. That's loc.gov. Thanks so much again for being here.